All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're tailoring this one directly for transportation owners, and we are going to look at where real, actual organizational safety power lives inside your company. We're pulling these insights from Fleet Safety Lane, which draws on decades of gritty, real-world experience in law enforcement, crash investigations, and risk management. Now, as an owner, you've probably spent a ton of time and money building out a safety program. But today, we are looking right past the glossy policy manuals and those thick orientation handbooks. We want to find out if your safety program actually has teeth when the pressure is really on. So, after a serious crash or a totally stressful audit, maybe a lawsuit, this is the comforting line management always falls back on, isn't it? Hey, don't worry, we have a safety guy, or our safety manager handles all of that. And honestly, that sounds absolutely great in a deposition, but the hard truth, your org chart doesn't protect your company. A title on a business card might show that someone was assigned a task, sure, but it completely fails to answer the much harder, much more important question about what is actually happening out on the road. And that brings us to a really harsh reality you just have to face. We aren't talking about your safety director saying no during a monthly safety meeting where everyone is sitting around drinking coffee and nodding along. I mean on a regular Tuesday, when the load absolutely needs to move, the customer is aggressively demanding an ETA, and the only available truck has a known maintenance concern. In that exact, high-pressure, make-or-break moment, can your safety person actually step in and stop that truck? Can they say no? And more importantly, will you, the company, back them up? Look, we really need to separate responsibility from authority here. Having a safety manager who tracks violations, handles training, monitors ELD records, and sends out reminders, that is highly valuable work. It keeps you organized, no doubt. But giving someone the job of caring about safety while the real financial decisions happen somewhere else in the business, that is a terrible deal. It creates this dangerous situation where safety is merely aware of a decision after operations has already made it, instead of being a driving force in actually making that decision. And that leads us right to the real friction point. This is that messy, uncomfortable moment where the pristine safety handbook loses to the relentless daily rhythm of dispatch. Because, let's be real, nobody walks into the office and announces, hey, let's be unsafe today. It just doesn't work like that. The friction starts with a schedule that is way too tight. A dispatcher desperately trying to solve 5 complex logistical problems before lunch, and a decision that is literally going to cost your company either time or money. In this environment, the true priorities of your operation are totally exposed. So, how do we find out who really has the power? We are going to run a diagnostic test. And no, we aren't going to look at your beautifully crafted corporate policies. To get to the actual truth, we are going to audit your recent, messy, real-world operational decisions. We don't want the perfect examples you polish up for a management meeting. We want to look at the normal, chaotic ones where dispatch absolutely needed a truck, a driver pushed back, and revenue was directly on the line. In this explainer, we're breaking this diagnostic down into 3 specific areas of your operation where you need to take a really hard look in the mirror. We're going to look at the truck, the driver, and dispatch. Let's start with the hardware. Think back to a recent situation where a driver flagged a defect, or maybe maintenance really wanted a unit checked out, but the load was already planned and the customer was tapping their foot. Who actually won that tug of war? Did the truck move anyway? Was the safety team genuinely involved before the decision was made, or were they just CC'd on an email after the fact? Because if that questionable truck was dispatched, it tells us point blank that your process allows the need to move freight to totally override equipment concerns. And here is a massive trap so many owners fall into with modern tech. Telematics and flashy dashboard alerts give this false sense of control. Getting a ping on your phone about a hard-braking event or a vehicle defect, that is just visibility. But visibility is absolutely not ownership. The data itself doesn't fix the problem. It only removes the excuse that nobody noticed it. True ownership means actually holding that unit in the yard or stepping in to actively change the behavior, regardless of what it costs you in that moment. Okay, now let's apply this diagnostic to your drivers. Pick a recent concern. Maybe it was repeated speeding alerts, serious fatigue issues, or messed up logs. You might think, well, we coached them, or we had them sign a warning form. But listen, if a driver has repeated issues, a piece of paper isn't enough. You have to ask yourself, could safety actually pull that highly productive, always available driver off the road without operations pushing back and minimizing the whole thing just to get the load covered? Next up, we look at dispatch. Now, dispatchers live right in the middle of the storm, just trying to keep everybody happy. But if a driver calls in and says, look, I cannot make this delivery legally, or I'm way too tired, what actually happens next? Does your safety program have the real power to step in, challenge the dispatch plan, and adjust that load? Or is the driver's genuine concern suddenly treated like an attitude problem? Because if safety can't reach dispatch, your policies are pretty much just decorations. Which brings us to something super sneaky, the danger of the normal. The crucial point here is understanding how repeated unresolved issues will secretly rewrite your company policy right under your nose. When an issue, like a driver speeding or a truck with a recurring minor defect, isn't fully resolved the very first time, it sets a precedent. A safety concern shouldn't just vanish because someone mentioned it once. If your company lacks a real escalation process, those unresolved issues quietly become your brand new operating standard. And it happens so much faster than you think. Watch this timeline. In just a matter of days, a warning sign pops up, say a telematics alert, and the driver gets a quick phone call. Don't, right? Well, a few weeks later, the exact same pattern repeats, but dispatch is super tight, so it gets ignored. Fast forward a few months, that glowing dashboard warning isn't even an alert anymore. It is just a normal Tuesday. When a repeat issue isn't escalated and stopped cold, people inside your organization literally stop treating it like a warning sign. This is a terrifying but totally honest truth for a lot of operations. When a truck rolls out with a known issue and somehow manages to get through the day without a disaster, everybody breathes a massive sigh of relief. But it teaches the exact wrong lesson. Nothing happened last time quietly becomes the unwritten maintenance plan. In these situations, silence from management isn't just a lack of action. It's an active endorsement of risky workarounds. Ultimately, all of this diagnostic work points a glaring spotlight right back at you, the owner, and your senior management team. Because at the end of the day, safety authority depends entirely on management support. A safety director can recommend holding a truck or pulling a driver until they are blue in the face, but ownership is the one who decides whether that recommendation actually matters when it directly affects the money, the freight, and the customer relationships. The fact is, every single company operates on two sets of rules. You've got the slogan standard and the real standard. Now, the slogan standard is what your safety manual says and what's printed on those nice posters in the break room. But the real standard, that is what management actually supports when the safe decision is highly inconvenient. Your employees don't learn your standards from a PowerPoint during orientation. They learn them by watching exactly what you do when safety slows your operation down. And your team absorbs this real standard every single day. They are watching. They see when a truck gets released anyway despite a defect. They see a driver get their fourth second chance with absolutely no changes. They hear maintenance being told to just get through this week. If you overrule safety just to keep the freight moving or to appease an angry customer, your entire team notices it immediately. And that dangerous lesson, it sticks permanently. So, to protect your company before a crash happens and way before an outside reviewer starts digging through your files, you need a stronger record. You need to be able to prove that your safety program wasn't just a fancy title sitting on an org chart, but that it was intrinsically connected to real, costly business decisions. You've got to prove that safety had a direct, undeniable role in how the company operated on its busiest, most stressful days. So, what does this proof actually look like? Look, these don't have to be fancy legal documents. They just need to clearly show action. We're talking about a record showing a truck was definitively held in the yard until a defect was resolved. A driver completely pulled from dispatch for a qualification review. A dispatcher actually corrected on hours of service pressure. A customer explicitly told, no, this delivery window has to change because it isn't safe or legal. This is the proof that when push came to shove, safety shoved back, and management backed them up. So before your next truck fires up and rolls out of the yard, I want you to take a hard look in the mirror and answer this question honestly. Because after a serious event, pointing the finger at the person with safety on their business card is the easy part. The incredibly hard part is explaining to a jury what that person was actually empowered to do when the truck needed to move, the driver was ready, the customer was screaming, and the safer answer was entirely inconvenient. So what kind of power does your safety program really have? Take a look at your records tomorrow morning. What you find might just save your business. Thanks for hanging out with us for this explainer.